Hey guys, Alessio, hope you're well. Just a very quick video for you about the stock markets. I just came out here in this beautiful park, getting some fresh air and also enjoying some of the scenery here. Anyway guys, what I want to tell you in this video was that essentially I've sold almost 90% of my stock holdings, my stock ETF holdings, which is mostly S&P 500. Now, the reasons why I've done this, I'm sure you probably already know. I've made at least 2 videos about this already. Number one, the month of June happens to be seasonally a weak negative month for the stock markets, but also much more important than that, which is something I mentioned in my most recent video, which is that we have 2 important warning signals, the Hindenburg omen and the Titanic syndrome, both of which signal weaknesses, significant weaknesses in the overall stock markets. Now, of course, when you look at the S&P and the overall stock markets right now, for example, the S&P and the NASDAQ, they don't look weak at all. In fact, they look pretty strong with the significant rallies we've seen in the past several weeks and months. But of course, that strength can be deceiving as well. As I explained in my previous videos, that particular signal we can see, those 2 warning signals we can see with the Hindenburg omen and the Titanic syndrome, and some others, which I discussed in the members video, they're showing there are weaknesses and potential dangers in the stock market in the next few weeks and potentially the next few months. By the way, something important I want to mention about this chart, about the Hindenburg omen and the Titanic syndrome, again, courtesy of Jason Gephardt of Sentiment Trader, which is that some of you commented on my video, my previous video, that this signal is not important because it's still below 60, below the 60 level on this chart. Clearly, some people think that because the signal was in the 30s, for example, 38, 39, that it doesn't really matter. It's not important. It's insignificant. That is not the case. In fact, as Jason Gephardt himself said, that this is the highest level we've seen since 2008. And notice that the previous times in 2015 and also in 2019, when this signal reached this high level in the 30s, in the high 30s, that was right before significant corrections and drops in the stock market. For example, the one that occurred in 2015 happened just before a major drop, at least about 8% in the stock market. And the warning signal in 2019 occurred before the COVID crash, the significant 34% drop we saw in the stock market in the S&P, for example. Now, again, I'm not saying the next drop in the stock market will be a severe crash like those previous times. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that we should not ignore this warning sign simply because it's in the 30s or in the high 30s and just because it's below 60. That is not the case. It is a warning sign that we should heed, we should pay attention to. By the way, another important reason why I decided to sell most of my position in the stock market is because we hit some strong resistance at the 5,337 level. This is a key level I've had on the charts for many months. In fact, this is based on a specific calculation. And in fact, the brilliant analyst and trader Manuel Blythe at Dow Theory, he mentioned that usually when the market reaches these specific levels, like for example, 5,337 on the S&P, usually we see pullbacks or indeed a pause, some kind of correction even in the stock markets. So that is why I decided to sell the majority of my stock holdings. I sold most of my stock positions when we reached the 5,337 resistance level. As I mentioned, I've sold almost 90% of my stock positions, of my stock ETF holdings. Now, of course, I'm not trying to tell you that you should do the same thing as me. In fact, this video is by no means a recommendation to sell or short the stock market. It's purely for educational purposes, and also just want to let you know what I'm doing at the moment, essentially based on the dangers and the signals that I'm seeing in the stock markets. All right, guys, so I think it's a time to be extremely cautious about the increasing risks of a potential drop in the stock market. In fact, that chart that I showed you in my previous video is indicating there's a high risk of a potential correction and drop in the stock markets in the next several weeks. So that's why I've decided to protect myself against any potential corrections or drops by de-risking. In other words, reducing my exposure to the stock market and as a result, reducing the risk as well, in case there is some kind of a drop or a major correction in the stock market. Now, I've kept a small position still in the market, about 10%, but that's only in case the market makes new highs, in case I'm wrong, essentially. But personally, I don't think I'm wrong. I think there's a very high risk of some kind of a major sell-off or indeed some kind of a drop or pullback, a correction in the stock market, potentially in the next few weeks or in the next couple of months. Again, I'm not trying to tell you or anyone that you should do the same thing as me. I think, again, it's a time to be cautious. Now, of course, as to the question what this might do to Bitcoin, again, I really don't know because there is a correlation, a positive correlation between the stock markets and Bitcoin, but it's difficult to predict as to the correlation Bitcoin and also difficult to predict how Bitcoin might react to a major drop or correction in the stock market. But I think there is a risk, a possibility that perhaps a drop in the stock market may potentially also impact Bitcoin as well in a negative way. We shall see. Again, there's no way to be 100% certain about that. One more thing to say before I finish this video is that I'm still looking to buy into the stock market at lower levels. Okay, so once the market sells off and we see a correction, hopefully in the next few weeks, perhaps in the next few months, then I'm looking to buy into the stock market at lower levels, at cheaper levels, perhaps at a strong support level on the markets. And just be aware of the fact that there are potential risks right now of a major correction or some kind of a drop in the stock market. All right, guys, I'm going to go into more detail about the stock markets, Bitcoin and gold in the member video. So make sure you check out the next members video. And of course, if you're not a member, you can join that link you see right there. Thank you very much indeed. I look forward to seeing the next video update. Bye for now.